A Ukrainian Su-27 fighter jet delivered a powerful strike against Russian positions in the village of Uspanivka on the Pokrovsk front, continuing the pressure on enemy forces in one of the most contested directions of the war. The precision airstrike comes as Ukrainian pilots increasingly use heavy aircraft to disrupt Russian fortifications and logistics in the Donetsk region. Reports indicate that Russian units in the area suffered significant damage, with defensive lines shaken and reinforcements delayed. Ukraine's Air Force has stepped up operations around Pokrovsk, aiming to prevent Russia from consolidating its advances and to maintain initiative on the battlefield. Fuel shortages have hit Volgograd, where drivers report long lines and empty pumps across the region. Gazprom stations are limiting supplies, while Yarneft and Volganeft outlets have run dry, forcing some stations to close completely. What started as a local problem is now spreading to other parts of Russia, with similar disruptions being reported in Saratov, Samara, and even in the Moscow region. The shortages are linked to growing pressure on Russia's energy infrastructure from Ukrainian drone strikes and the government's decision to prioritize fuel exports over domestic needs. As a result, civilian motorists are struggling to refuel, transport companies face delays, and prices are climbing sharply. The crisis underscores how fragile Russia's energy sector has become despite its vast resources, and how the war is now directly affecting the daily lives of ordinary Russians across multiple regions. On the Kupiansk front, Ukraine's Achilles drone operators from the 429th Regiment destroyed 2 Russian tanks, 2 MTLBs, damaged an armored vehicle, and eliminated Russian personnel. On the Kupiansk front, the 429th Regiment has become one of Ukraine's most effective drone warfare units, earning the nickname Achilles for their precision strikes. Operating in a sector where Russian forces have been pushing to regain lost ground, these operators play a crucial role in blunting assaults and disrupting enemy logistics. Their tactics combine speed, accuracy, and constant aerial surveillance, giving Ukrainian infantry an edge in holding defensive lines. The Kupiansk direction is strategically important, serving as a gateway to Kharkiv region and a supply corridor for both sides. By leveraging drones to strike armor and personnel before they reach the front line, the Achilles operators are not only inflicting heavy losses, but also undermining Russia's ability to mount sustained offensives in this critical sector. Sanctions and GPS jamming have had a hugely disruptive effect on Russian civil aviation, according to airline pilots. They have had to fly with suitcases full of old paper charts, turn off critical safety systems, and fly defective aircraft with dubious Chinese components. The Russian independent media outlet The Insider has been speaking with a number of airline pilots about the impact of sanctions on their work. Prior to the imposition of sanctions, Russian airlines used Western aeronautical chart systems such as Jeppesen from the US and Lido from Germany. These were disconnected after sanctions were introduced, leaving Russian airlines without electronic charts. According to one pilot, there was only one option: switch to paper charts. And we, in fact, flew like that for a while. We had a large suitcase containing paper charts for every country. Aeroflot sought frantically to find a Russian replacement and hired a small St. Petersburg company, OOOAOMP, to develop an indigenous app called Skyback Pro. It proved unable to produce replacement charts quickly and with high quality, leading to a lot of errors. Previously, pilots and flight dispatchers had used the Western systems to automatically generate safety-critical flight calculations in advance of flights. Now, however, they have to do it by hand. I recently flew from Moscow to Yekaterinburg and back. As usual, I arrived at the airport a couple of hours before departure to have time to do the flight calculation, but it turned out that everything had to be done manually. I was surprised to find that I had to prepare using old paper charts. We barely had 2 hours to prepare everything and call the necessary authorities for flight approval. Access to reliable weather forecasting services has also been cut off, meaning that weather information is now taken from open sources and the internet. As a pilot puts it, weather information is taken from the internet, from open sources. What's the weather like in Surgut? They climb up and look. Oh, the weather is fine. Okay, let's fly. This absolutely does not comply with any international standards. That is, now you can fly without flight documents. You can fly without flight calculations. You can fly without hazard maps. You can fly without diagrams of restricted areas, including areas over which air defense can target you. We add fuel simply by eye, knowing roughly how much is needed, based on some old calculations. And then we add another 5 tons to make sure there's enough. Pilots are also seriously affected by GPS jamming and other anti-drone measures in strategic areas, especially over Moscow. They are having to turn off collision detection systems in response to false alerts, as one pilot explains. We were flying to Sochi, and right over the sea, a warning started blaring about a possible collision with a mountain. Just like in many films in such cases, the plane starts blaring a pull-up. That's exactly what happened to us. This happens at night, when you can't see anything. The system exists precisely for this purpose, to warn us. Well, what if I made a mistake somewhere, turned the wrong way, and ended up not over the sea, but actually flying toward the mountain? Of course, we started to perform the maneuver. Then our crew was severely scolded for it. Didn't you know you were over the sea? Why did you do that? That's why now, because of this GPS spoofing, pilots over Moscow simply turn off the ground collision warning system completely, especially at low altitudes, as well as the traffic collision avoidance system that prevents air-to-air collisions. GPS jamming causes erroneous proximity warnings and alarms. It also disrupts the ability of air traffic control to track where each aircraft is. Manual tracking has to be done instead. But this is prone to errors, which may be particularly dangerous if an aircraft is flying near a military facility which has air defense systems. A lack of spare parts is also causing increasing numbers of system failures. Some are more hazardous than others. For instance, if the weather radar fails, the aircraft can still be flown, as long as there is good visibility and no adverse weather along the route. The pilot makes the decision on whether the aircraft is flight-worthy by reviewing the aircraft's technical log before departure. However, due to the increasing number of failures, Aeroflot has abandoned its previous rules and is now allowing a far greater number of defects. Aircraft are now able to depart with a larger number of more serious equipment failures. But even with higher tolerance for faults, the sheer number of failures has caused serious disruption. More than 200 incidents were logged in 2024 alone. There was one time when they changed planes 4 times. First, they changed one plane, changed passengers, transferred baggage, then a second time, a third, and only on the 4th did they fly. The number of aircraft breakdowns has increased dramatically. Incidents have included hydraulic failures leading to emergency landings and engine failures causing engine fires. Aeroflot has had particular problems with the engines on its Airbus A320-200 planes, which have proved very difficult to maintain without support. According to official statistics, in 2024 alone, Russian airlines decommissioned 58 aircraft due to problems with repairs and spare parts. Even brand-new aircraft have had to be idled due to a lack of demand caused by the closure of international routes. A pilot recalls, "At the airline where I used to work, 19 new planes are parked at the fence. The company was closed because all aircraft were banned from flying out of Russia. They simply ruined the company. The personnel, trained flight personnel with all the necessary permits, were dispersed. Nobody cares about human fates. Established businesses have been destroyed. Planes, including the newest Boeings, simply sit idle at Moscow Sheremetyevo. They occupy parking spaces on the aprons. You can admire them there. To deal with the shortage of spare parts, airlines are cannibalizing unused or faulty planes. If an aircraft develops a defect that prevents it from flying, it is put on the scrap heap, awaiting its turn, or used as a donor aircraft for other aircraft. This is a common occurrence now, and an aircraft that is situated on the scrap heap quickly becomes unusable. No amount of mothballing will help. Repairing it afterwards is very difficult, if not impossible. We had an airplane whose engine had reached the end of its service life, and it was heavily dismantled for parts and spare parts. Then, when new engines were installed, new parts were purchased, it was slowly reassembled, and it flew again. Airlines can still obtain spare parts through front companies in various countries, particularly Turkey, as well as from Chinese vendors of unlicensed third-party spare parts of questionable quality. More troubles for Russian economy. Workers at Russia's largest car manufacturer, Avtovaz, are resigning en masse, with the company now forcing staff to agree to much lower pay and hours, as sales have dropped. We used to earn 100 to 120,000. Now the maximum is 45 to 50. Dash worker said to Russian media outlet MASH.
Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. Also, if you want to support Warthog Defense, please become our member and get early access to new videos, exclusive members-only videos, and become administrator in comment section. The membership link is in the description.
Every day. We had a guy last week at 6 rescues in 6 days. You know, he's doing the job every day.